Oh, cool. Yeah.
Hey, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, folks. It's one and only V the Gorilla coming to you live on this edition of Rogue SW. And we have with us the man of the hour who needs no introduction. We are talking about Xoaquin Flores himself, the one and only Patron. He is here.
Hey, what's up?
What's up, guys? How are you? And you can find Xoaquin over on his Telegram channel. The link is in the description box. New Resistance, folks. Xoaquin gives daily, multiple times, real dispatch of absolute intellect work in terms of understanding the geopolitical, geostrategic, what is happening globally. I mean, his just absolutely mind-blowing insight. So make sure you guys subscribe to his Telegram channel. With that being said, Xoaquin, welcome back, brother. Glad to have you on.
I'm glad to be here. It's the best place to be.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Joaquin, there's so much craziness and madness happening in the world. There's the Nigeria potentiality of U.S. conflict there. There's the whole Venezuela drama. There's the ongoing situation in Gaza that could turn on a dime. We have the Ukraine situation. Looks like the Russians are finally mopping up things over there. I mean, where do you want to begin? It's a giant ball of yarn, man.
Yeah, I mean, everything in the world is connected. So there are no unconnected things. And you start pulling at the string here, and it's going to lead. I mean, you pull at Venezuela, it's going to lead to Russia. You pull at Russia, it's going to lead to Taiwan. So everything is connected. And but I wanted to speak a little bit to like a phenomenon that I think doesn't get appreciated, especially in the whatever you want to call it, so-called alternative media sphere. How alternative the ideas are, of course, is a big question. But I wanted to speak to like something that kind of doesn't always register with people, or they don't fully understand. And you do. I mean, you're an expert in this, and I think you'll be able to therefore appreciate my words like faster than anyone else would. And that has to do with like speaking to the likelihood of war, right? When volume traders are using algorithmic and AI nets to grasp and capture the situation based upon what's being said by experts across the gamut globally, and how that can actually lead to war, right?
Yeah.
And right, because if that's where people are placing their bets, now if it's just like a day trader, that's not going to have a big influence. But when you're talking about tens or hundreds of billions of dollars in investments into things, and people start to get an idea that war is inevitable, then they kind of place their bets and put, whether they're placing put options or your hedge or any number of ways, currency. And ultimately, these players have enough skin in game that then if a war isn't happening, then they kind of like need to push for it to happen. So I think it's always, it's good. Like if someone lives somewhere, and you're saying, hey, be prepared for a tornado, be prepared for an earthquake, maybe a war is coming. Like for that specific local population, it's probably good information to like better be safe than sorry, to err on the side of caution. But saying that war is going to happen or that this is definitely going to happen, even though it sells newspapers, so to speak, it's clickbait. It drives a direction of a lot of even sophisticated parties engaged in volume transactions of large scale, right?
Yeah.
So it can actually lead to war. Like if enough people think, if enough analysts and experts and I'm not just talking about like the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal. Like I'm talking especially about larger scale alternative analysts, because at least in the present day, enough of these more sophisticated volume traders are also adjusting their algorithms to cast a wide net to capture and summarize what is not coming from the Wall Street Journal, but in fact is coming from more like anti-systemic thinkers and writers. So when those people are saying, hey, war is inevitable, and then you have a lot of bets kind of placed on that, that can actually be a part of, a big part of what drives war, right?
Yeah, exactly. With everything that's happening right now, we've had I found it very telling that when the Nobel Peace Prize winner, the Venezuelan woman who won, and she said that if there's U.S. intervention and we take this country, the first order of business that I will do is move our embassy to Jerusalem.
Yeah, I mean, so there's something else going on.
Yeah.
Right. Like there's something else going on. And, Trump was asked a question like a week or two ago after the Nobel Prize stuff went down. This would have been like a week after. And he said, oh, this Machado lady she seems like a very nice lady. I don't know who she is. And, it really harkened back to when all of the Iran stuff was going on. And you had, I guess, the son of the former Shah, Pahlavi, Shah Reza Pahlavi, going around, right, in the YouTube sphere and in the kind of neocon MAGA grift, like that kind of sphere of MAGA co-option, so to speak. They're just Lindsey Graham Republicans, though, right? And she's talking, right? You had the son of the Shah out there believing that he was going to be like come back into power. He was believing that like the United States was going to engage in a regime change operation in Iran, right? And this would have been like at Israel's behest, right? Like this would have been like very much. If you've ever seen V or Nick, like protests in France or New York, and it'll be like an anti-Iran or pro-Israel protest, like take your pick, and you'll have these people waving the flag of Iran under the Shah.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the activists. So they're trying. So they're have this like this Israel, Iranian expatriate kind of synergy, right?
Are you
so now
talking about the lion flag? The flag with a lion on it?
Yeah, the lion flag.
Bella's covered that. He said he was in New York and he saw these like Iranian protesters, but it was that flag.
That's the one.
Yeah.
So you've got this, and then with Machado in Venezuela, she's I might have to grab a coffee. Nick, you're riding me up. Okay, I might have to grab a coffee. But Nick, you might have to take the show just for a second, and thanks for bearing with me. I've had a distracting afternoon, and for my tardiness, forgive me. But yeah, thanks for understanding. We had like Machado is what I suspect is going on is that she's trying to make an arrangement with Israeli energy companies and Israeli importers that's totally independent of Trump policy. Like, think about who was behind the Nobel Prize in the first place. Like, think about who they've awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for on this level. Like in other arenas, like in the sciences, it's a different committee. But on the committee that awards for like political things, like trace the history and who those people are that have won. And they've always been like neoliberal / neoconservative figureheads. Right?
I think like most of them are Jewish. Just going to say it.
Okay. So you can say that.
Just going to have it out there, folks.
Maybe now's a good time to get my coffee. No, but they have. My lawyer's calling me. Hold on. Oh no, we love Jewish people. There's okay.
I love Hillary Clinton.
Most of them are probably Zionist. We'll say it that way.
Right, that's a better way to put it. Yeah,
that's different. You know,
but anyway,
have to distinguish.
It is. But anyway, so we have this whole problem with Machado and Trump, and the way that they set this up, like, you remember how the day before you had like on Polymarket and a number of these like online betting things, like especially Polymarket, there's actually an investigation underway. Like, there was no particular focus on her. And then all of a sudden, people had inside information that she was going to win. And even though Polymarket, which is generally pretty good, only had her like at 4 or 5%. And then right before, she jumped to like 40% or basically, and then everyone like on that who knew, and how did they know? And did Trump even know before that? You see what I'm saying? So
I apologize. Go ahead.
Yeah. So yeah. Okay.
All good. So anyway, what was known? What did Trump know? What was known before that? That's how I'm thinking about it, because he kept talking about he wanted the Nobel Prize. Remember that? Mm-hmm. We haven't forgotten. Like, it's still happening, even though it's been handed out. You still, like, just the Prime Minister of Japan recently said, "Yeah, I'd nominate you." It's like, well, thanks. You know, it happened a couple of weeks ago, but that's very nice of you. But maybe she means for next year. I don't know. But yeah, it's connect those dots. Like, try to see what's going on there, and then do a power analysis, and then think about Trump psychology. If he had any indication that the Nobel Prize was going to go to her, and he does know who she is, and he's just lying and saying that he doesn't, but it's hugely damaging to her credibility and to her feasibility as a replacement for Maduro, for Trump to say that he doesn't know who she is, which he clearly has said. Like, he didn't. I'm not imagining that he said that in his sleep. Like, this was something he said on camera not long ago at all, like a week or two ago. So, are you following what I'm saying, Nick?
Like
I'm going to get my coffee so I get a little bit more coherent. Maybe you can like help put together what I'm saying. I'm just giving me like, it's literally right here. I just forgot to bring it out with me.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think it's a good bridge into, I'll do what I can. Hopefully I don't screw it up, but it's a good bridge into like what most people think is happening in Venezuela versus what's actually happening in Venezuela. So we'll rely on XF to fill us in there. But look, you know how it is, V. You're from like kind of the New York area. You lived in the city for enough years. Like, what would you do, V, if something happened and somebody high up said, "Oh yeah, V the Gorilla seems like a nice guy. I don't know who he is." Like, what does that mean to you?
What does that mean to me?
Yeah, like, what if I was like, I don't know. What if I don't know, Ray Dalio or somebody way up high said, "V the Gorilla seems like a nice guy. I don't know who he is."
I'm not quite sure what the context is.
Well, it's kind of like in my look, I'm reading it, and XF is back with us here. I'm reading it as a disavowment. That's how I read it.
Sure. Oh, sure. I get what you're saying.
You get it? Like, okay, so if someone came up to Ray Dalio and said, "Hey, this guy did a big deal, and it really affected your company in a big way," and he's like, "Oh yeah, well, yeah, seemed like a nice guy. I don't know who he is." Like, that's like saying I had nothing to do with it. Like, that's how I read that in a very like East Coast way. Yeah. Joaquin, tell me if I got that, more or
less.
That's
it. That's it. Yeah. When I was grabbing my coffee, I heard what yes, that was it. So now consider the one of the problems is that a lot of information is coming through paraphrases, and we had the same problem like from 2017 to 2020 also. Like, the only place that you could actually read Trump's take, which you can also have twists and turns and distractions and wrong statements in them, but at least you're interpreting the right data, was from his Twitter account, and now it's like his Truth Social account, or it's going to be he's at the Oval Office, or he's going to be in the White House conference room, or he's going to be on Air Force One. Like, he's constantly on Air Force One. So like, if it's not a recording of him or a statement typed out by him or, Dan Scavino, right? It's not him. And there are a lot of fake headlines that are also driving perceptions and could be driving war. And I think there are tremendous, like, don't get me wrong, Nick, there are tremendous pressures, probably also from the Israelis, which Maria Machado, the Venezuelan dissident who won the Nobel Prize, Machado is definitely, and all these people are working in a network to pressure Trump to attack Venezuela. And not just attack, because I think we're going to see something optical, not as strong, but to the headlines of what we saw in Iran, which also did not cause regime change in Iran. We might see something like that in Venezuela, but Trump has been speaking against striking Venezuela. There was a very recent interview that just ran today or yesterday, and he seems to answer pretty clearly, even though he's trying not to answer directly to the journalist, because he's saying, I wouldn't tell you what I would do. And he goes, or what I wouldn't do. Like he really emphasized the wouldn't do it part, which was really, I think, important. And when I was doing my transcript of that piece, because I heard it and I don't like have auto subtitles. I actually like listened to it 20 times to type it out when I put it on the channel. Like I put a lot of work into this, just for one out of maybe 50 posts that I'll put in a day. And as I'm curating this and getting the exactly what he said right, he said, I'm not inclined to. And then he wants to say, but I wouldn't tell you because I'm not going to announce my plans. But then at the end he goes, I wouldn't tell you, or I don't tell you. He doesn't say I wouldn't. He says words like I don't. He speaks like that. It's very interesting. He says, I don't tell you what I would or wouldn't do. And but I'm reading, that could be strikes though. I mean, look, Venezuela is a big country, and there are drug cartels operating in Venezuela on the border of Colombia, right? And those have been the same ones that Maduro has been attacking. We're talking about M19, ELN, and FARC.
Yeah.
And like the president of Colombia is from, what is it, M19? Forgive me if I have that wrong. I think it's a movement of April 19th. I think.
He's a cartel president, kind of like Mexico's.
He's like the cartel president, and Scheinbaum is a very interesting question. Thanks for raising it. I mean, it's a tricky question. With Scheinbaum, I'm tracking her. I'm starting to pay more attention to her. I didn't like her from the start. Then I was looking at things that made sense because she seems agreement capable with Trump. But with Gustavo Petro in Colombia, his rhetoric, there was like this tremendous focus on him. But then let's also pay attention to the fact that this week, like the news cycle has shifted to Nigeria. And, I also want you to pay attention to the fact that there's been a Navy drawdown from the Persian Gulf and from the Eastern Mediterranean, which are the fleets historically associated with Israel's defense posture. Mm-hmm. And so the USS Gravely, for instance, is one of the warships that I tracked, and it was announced that it was being deployed to Puerto Rico, where it had been at Yorktown. But before that, under the Biden regime, it was as part of the Eisenhower with the Eisenhower Group in the Fifth Fleet in the Eastern Mediterranean, Israel. And before that, it had been in the Persian Gulf. Mm-hmm. So, like there's a lot of people that expect the worst to happen, and I understand that's like a heuristic for smart, right? Like we understand, Murphy's law, right? Like anything that can go wrong will. And I think we're all as a society, like as a collective humanity, like we're all traumatized from the past 50, 60 years of especially US foreign policy.
Yeah.
So like the trust level is very low, and I don't have a problem with the low trust level. Like that's not my problem to solve. Like I absolutely have no power in government or anything, and governments, they need to earn trust. Like they don't deserve trust. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But all that said, if you actually look at what's happening and look beyond the headlines, which is what I do, a different picture emerges. You see, that doesn't mean that that's what I'm saying is what's going to happen. But
Right.
what we can definitely see is that like the headlines are not just wrong naively. They're not just wrong innocuously. They're not just, cheap or lazy or a paraphrase of what a leader said that actually gives it a different spin. Like these are driving market decisions. Like these are driving money decisions. And, money is running a large part of our secular experience in this world. And it drives a lot of power decisions at the very top. And a lot of times it can pull people in that direction. So that's why I wanted to introduce my comments with that proviso today.
Yeah, I mean, so there's a lot there. And
Yeah.
usually like
Sorry.
it's so you're to bring it back into focus and add a little structure to the conversation. We usually have like 2, 3, 4 hours for Xoaquin to kind of lay things out. And so it's a, we don't have that here today, but that's what you guys got to do. You got to go over to that Telegram channel and check out like Joaquin's kind of long form stuff. He's one of the hardest working guys in the space.
Yes.
And so there's time to kind of lay things out. Cause look, none of us want to talk about 5D chess, and it really isn't 5D chess. It's just chess.
Strategy. Yeah.
It's just strategy. Like if you think that billions and trillions of dollars don't have strategy behind it, I'm sorry, I don't know what to tell you. Go fucking watch football. I mean, excuse my language, but
it's because the people have never. It's a lot of people, and no disrespect, because most of us haven't, but like a lot of people haven't even seen $1 million. So they don't even think in terms of the stakes involved. And maybe, and God willing, you know what I mean? They've never been conned, or they've never been tricked, or they've never been robbed or scammed before. And God forbid that ever happens to people. But I think a lot of people are naive, or they're well intentioned, but they're naive about how the world works.
Yeah, they think that the world operates through the type of values and aspects that they have, and it doesn't. It's a completely different ballgame. Like the uber wealthy, the elites, man, they think in such a cold, brutalistic fashion that it's nothing like anybody that's in like the middle class or upper middle class or even somebody who's like a multimillionaire. It's beyond all of that. It's hard to comprehend, but it's brutally cold, and it's just pure calculation.
Yes.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal. So with that said, I think that to tie it in, right, there's what we think is going on in Venezuela, and Guyana's a piece of that. And then there's what we think is going on in Colombia. There's the public stance, and then there is what doesn't seem to go along with the public stance. So in the time that by the way, Xoaquin, I can keep going. V may have to take off here in like 15 minutes, but I can continue with you so we can give the audience, something cohesive. But I would say like you make a good case for, and this contradicts a bit with Tom Luongo, but for Maduro, like maybe not being as bad of a guy as we're told. I mean, no one's good in politics. He's probably doing bad stuff, don't get me wrong, but it may be that he also is kind of like Trump in a little bit of a way, corralled, surrounded. He's got to do what he's got to do so they don't kill him. And, I don't know. There's stuff that you've talked about with like Chevron and their involvement down there and things like that. And you have a point of view that's a little different than a lot of people. So maybe I'll just kind of say, talk about Chevron a little bit and where that might tie in. That might lead us into that conversation a little bit smoothly.
Yeah. So there was in in 2007, when Chavez was in power, they began to nationalize the oil interests there in the Orinoco, the offshore there in Venezuela, and so in 2007 they introduced a new agreement, and they proposed this both to like ExxonMobil and to Chevron, and I think it was Chevron who didn't take the deal, right? And Chevron went with they decided to start operations in Guyana next door, but there's a legal question. You know, this is the same thing that happened with Kuwait and Iraq. Why Saddam invaded Kuwait? Because Kuwait was drilling. These were now ground drilling, but Kuwait was drilling diagonally to hit Iraq's, you know, sovereign reserves and sell it as Kuwaiti. So, likewise, Guyana, we're talking about offshore, so it's the ocean, and then you can have your drill that you can also, once you're, you know, underwater, it'd be what you can't see, right? Like, so the Venezuelans have legally, I mean, I'm not saying it's legal, I'm saying by their own laws, they have passed that they have annexed a large part of Guyana, almost all of it, right? And now that is a case that would go before the UN. I could understand there being some supranational legal arbitration involved. But I think it wouldn't be a stretch to say that the United States could easily make the case that that was illegal, what Venezuela did. But likewise, the US's sanctions on Venezuela are illegal if you call them sanctions, but there is more of a blockade. And so we also have this language problem that you can only call them sanctions if they're approved by the UN Security Council. If they're not approved by the UN Security Council, then you just have an embargo. That's just a one side, that's it, you know. So sanctions is a misuse of law because you know, those types of sanctions could be illegal. Like if you try to enforce your sanctions such that other countries must abide by them using gunboat diplomacy, right? Then you're actually yourselves in violation of international law. So now the United States hasn't done that, but they could. And a lot of the fleet gathering there could be used to do that. And yet we have not had problems with the, you know, Chinese, et cetera, Russian or Chinese, any fleets that export oil from Venezuela, right? So there's like a very big clue about what's not happening. And like we talked about the dog that didn't bark, right? The other dog that didn't bark is Venezuela's declared annexation of Guyana.
You're talking about the Baskerville, the Hound of the Baskervilles.
That's right.
Yeah.
Like, so why, like, we didn't hear that. It's old Sherlock Holmes. So we didn't hear that. We did not hear that.
To like crystallize that for the audience.
Yeah.
What you're saying is that right now, China, Russia, others are able to have all of their oil dealings with Venezuela right now.
Yeah.
But
also ExxonMobil.
ExxonMobil too.
Yeah. Also the Americans and the deal, the conversation that is happening between Kirill Dmitriev, right, the Russian diplomatic envoy on energy and rapprochement with U.S., right, and the U.S., the Trump-Putin summit in Alaska, right, all oriented around both Chevron and ExxonMobil investment in Russia. There's a Sakhalin 3 energy platform in the Caspian. There's a few others. There's a number of projects. You know, I've been writing about them and documenting them on my Telegram channel, and I've been writing for SCF. We actually can't say the name on YouTube, so I won't. But SCF has published a work where I propose that Trump and Maduro are Roman allies. But that's a specific concept. It doesn't mean that they like each other, although I suspect that Trump respects Maduro. And this goes back to Bolton. Like we're just we want to keep this tight for folks. Yeah, I don't want to Whitney Wide Web you guys with a bunch of names and shit, but this is not about connecting the dots. Like this is a very clear strategic thing I'm trying to describe, right? Like Bolton was the one that was leading regime change in Venezuela, right? Trump's people have now charged Bolton with 18 counts of violating state secrets. So Bolton and Pompeo are not pro-Trump guys.
Right.
Right? And these are the same guys that were trying to railroad Trump into war with Iran.
Right.
Right. That's what the whole, when Trump comes out with the army guys, with the Joint Chiefs of Staff, et cetera, and he says like, the storm is upon us.
Oh, sure.
Right? That was right as Bolton tried to arrange creating a war over Iran shooting down a drone. And that was unmanned, but they may have shot down U.S. Air Force or air servicemen. There was 2 planes, and the one that was manned had its transponder off, and it was flying below the big kind of Reaper drone that had its transponder on, and they both violated Iranian airspace, flying, in synchronicity, and the Iranians shot maybe both of them down. So that was supposed to definitely be the pretext to start a bombing and war on Iran. Trump refused to do that, and then he made this speech that people who really understood the significance of it can appreciate the depth of the meaning. But even the words alone, he goes, I have great respect for Persian people. This would be a catastrophic war, and a lot of our guys we would lose a lot of our guys too. The New York Times was the one pushing for this war, and when he did not start that war, the New York Times lied. They wrote a fake news headline saying that he had changed his mind and called off the invasion of Iran, right? The truth is that he never greenlit it in the first place. So these are a lot of things that you have to like understand the patterns and pattern recognition to give an accurate OSINT analysis and breakdown to see if you're reading the signal, right? And insofar as these patterns and these methods can tell us strongly, like roughly 75% certitude, what will be happening. You follow what I'm saying?
Well, yeah. So we're talking about how Trump avoided war in Iran back in like 2017. So
That's
how is
right.
this relating to what might or might not be happening in our Caribbean Sea?
Right. So then you have to fast forward to the most recent war with Iran that he also averted, right? Israel started a war with Iran that they couldn't finish. If that war had gone on, it would have cost Iran significantly, but it would have destroyed Israel. So on behalf of it, the Israelis at this time, if you were following